And so one of the proclamations of the biblical text is that human beings exist in a contractual relationship with the divine. That's a very interesting claim. And we exist in contractual relationships with each other. That's what a marriage is, obviously, and all of our business arrangements and friendships, although the details of the contract and the friendship are implicit, but they're still there. It's an understanding. So our essential mode of the being in the world is contractual. And so God's contract with Abraham takes a very specific form. He says to Abraham, it's very well defined. He says to Abraham, if you leave your zone of comfort and you go out into the world and you put your heart into it, this is what I can offer. You'll be a blessing to yourself. So that's a good deal, right? Because part of the reason that people suffer is because they're racked with self-doubt and guilt and lack of faith in themselves, whether that's deserved or undeserved. And sometimes it's undeserved and sometimes it's deserved, but they're not a blessing to themselves. They suffer more in consequence of their own being than for any other reason. Okay, so if you abide by the voice of adventure, then that disappears. Okay, so that's a good deal. And then the next part of the deal is you'll do that in a manner that will bring you renown among other people, and it'll be justified. So that's a good deal. So that's basically reputation, right? It's not fame, it's reputation. Those are different. Fame, you can attain fame by being disreputable, right? And you can have a great reputation without being famous. So they're not exactly the same.
Right. And those are very, very different things.
They are. Yeah. And the reputation, it's also the case that the kingdom of heaven that Christ tells people to store treasure in is a reputational storehouse. So the gospel injunction basically is that the safest place to store value is in reputation. And that makes perfect sense to me. I think that's exactly right. So, okay, so the second part of the covenant is you'll make a name among other people and it'll be justified. So that's a good deal. And the third part is you'll establish something permanent, a dynasty, right? So that's what makes Abraham the father of nations. So now there's a new idea that enters into that. So the idea is that the pattern of following the spirit of adventure is the same pattern that makes for the best fatherly mode of being, and that has a multi-generational effect. And so that if you embody the father properly, you radically increase the probability of the paternal success of your children. And I think that's true. I think that's right. So I was thinking about this in relationship to Dawkins' theory of the selfish gene. It's like, the implication of the selfish gene is that reproduction takes primacy and that there's no difference between reproduction and sex. But that's not true. There's a big difference between reproduction and sex, especially among human beings, because we're high investment parents, right? It isn't just sex and the offspring runs off into the world. It's a multi-generational investment. That's why we live as long as we do, because it's a grandparental investment as well as a parental investment. So imagine that to maximize the reproductive success of your offspring, you have to instantiate the pattern of the father. And that's the divine pattern of the father, right? And God tells Abraham that you embody that pattern by pursuing the spirit of adventure. So that's cool. That's cool. And then there's one last thing. He says, you'll do all three of those things in a way that'll be a benefit to everyone else. And so then you think about this biologically even. So you see this in your kids. They have this impetus to master the world, right? And now you want to watch that and you want to encourage that. And you do that by establishing a relationship that's separate, because I'm sure your boys are quite different.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because children differ a lot from one another. So you have to establish a different relationship with each of them. But there's commonality in the relationship because it's an encouraging relationship if you're a good father. So now, Matt, that you embody that encouraging relationship optimally, well, God's promise to Abraham is that's what makes you the father of nations, I think. That's such a lovely equation because it it makes the case that the same instinct that calls a child out into the world and that underlies the excitement of adventure is the same. It's the same spirit that produces all four of those benefits. And I thought, well, it has to be that way, because how would it possibly be that the spirit that calls us to move out in the world wouldn't also confer maximum social and reproductive benefits?
Studies in evolutionary psychology suggest that human success is often tied to cooperative strategies and long-term investments, especially in relationships. For instance, research by Robert Axelrod on the tit-for-tat strategy in game theory demonstrates that reciprocal altruism builds trust and mutual benefit over time. This aligns with the idea of human interactions being fundamentally contractual, where each party invests in and benefits from the relationship. From a philosophical standpoint, Immanuel Kant's idea of moral law within resonates here. Kant argued that individuals must act in ways that could be universalized, essentially creating an implicit contract with humanity to act justly. This moral reciprocity mirrors Peterson's notion that our relationships, whether with the divine or each other, are contractual, rooted in mutual understanding and responsibility. Jordan Peterson's exploration of Abraham's covenant with God reveals profound truths about human nature and social dynamics. His framing of God's promise as a call to adventure, a path toward self-actualization, and a generational legacy highlights the interconnectedness of personal growth, reputation, and legacy. However, where Peterson adds a unique twist is in tying this to the biological realities of high-investment parenting and the divine pattern of fatherhood. This connection isn't just metaphorical, but deeply practical. How we live shapes not only our children's lives, but the broader society. What's particularly compelling is Peterson's insight into the distinction between fame and reputation, emphasizing the moral weight of the latter. It's not merely about being known, but being respected for justifiable reasons. This shifts the focus from self-centered ambitions to communal benefits. His link between adventure and optimal fatherhood is equally striking, suggesting that the courage to venture into the unknown mirrors the nurturing instinct needed to guide the next generation. Yet, Peterson's argument could benefit from an exploration of how modern challenges, fragmented families, societal pressures, and the erosion of trust impact this divine contractual model. How can individuals navigate these complexities while still aspiring to embody this ideal? Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Let us know in the comments what resonated with you most. We'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time.